Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent. I'm Kathy Kerns, a member of this congregation and this morning's worship associate. Thank you for joining me and our service leader, the Reverend Christie Anderson. We gather virtually once again, a spiritual community that seeks to be diverse and inclusive as we inspire love, work for justice, and grow together in community. Wherever you are this morning, we welcome you. May our time together be filled with joy, with belonging, with hope, and with the promise of who we can be together. We extend a special welcome to our visitors. Thank you for worshiping with us this morning. Visitors, if you'd like to know more about our church and be known to us, please contact our administrator to be added to our e-news list or to be welcomed by our welcome team. You can find that information on our church website. I also want to express gratitude to our team leading worship remotely, including those who won't be on camera. Thank you. We are a people who care for one another and value the connections we have with each other and with this community.
Love grows right now when I smile with you. Our hearts expand in the light of this room. These eyes are widening eyes, and I know this voice defines the cries of my soul. My heart is truly beginning to bloom. Let's open the windows and open the doors and notice this moment like never before. Break through the barriers and reach out a hand and offer a peace to a stranger or friend. We'll raise the whole building and rise up above to the part of us that feels and knows how to love. And we'll sing of the goodness and speak of the truth, and the joy in our hearts will enlighten this room. No matter your struggle, no matter your pain, there's a love right now that's bringing on a change. So open your eyes and take in the view, 'cause right now I'm smiling with you. Right now I'm smiling. Right now I'm smiling. Right now I'm smiling with you. Love grows right now when I smile with you. Our hearts expand in the light of this room. These eyes are widening eyes, and I know this voice defines the cries of my soul. My heart is truly beginning to bloom. My heart is truly beginning to bloom.
Good morning. As a mother of two compassionate boys, I got used to them bringing home creatures in need, such as stray cats and even a large bullfrog missing its back leg. Given my experience living with spontaneity, I was pretty composed when my husband Brad, upon meeting up with a disheveled, gruff-looking stranger, called me and said, "Is it okay if he stays with us for a couple of days?" That was my introduction to Steve Fugate, a man in his 60s walking across America with a small two-wheeled cart containing all of his possessions. and a makeshift sign strapped to his back reading, "Love Life." I learned that Steve had spent most of his life in an ordinary way, living with his wife of 28 years, raising a son and daughter into adulthood, and operating a car detailing business in Vero Beach, Florida. But his life was thrown into turmoil when his marriage broke up and his beloved son committed suicide. To heal his grief, Steve dedicated himself to reminding people of the miracle of life in an effort to discourage those contemplating suicide. He became a one-man walking crusader committed to saving lives and spreading gratitude. Following the death of his son, Steve spent 2 years walking 4,700 miles around the perimeter of the continental US. His daughter Shelley was his anchor, checking on Steve by phone and occasionally sending him money. 3 weeks before he was to arrive home, following his second trip around the country, Shelley, who had multiple sclerosis, accidentally took too many prescription pills and died. Devastated by the painful loss of his remaining child, Steve sold his home and began his Shelley Walk. Starting in 1999, for the next 16 years, Steve completed 7 walking trips around the perimeter of the country and an additional journey that he called his zigzag walk, which entailed walking into all 48 continental states. Pulling a cart and displaying his Love Life sign, Steve has walked over 46,000 miles. I met Steve when he was about halfway along what he said would be his last walk. For the past 5 years, Steve has lived a quiet and modest life in a trailer in Vero Beach. But 10 days ago, at the age of 73, Steve departed on another journey, walking across the country, saying that his message is needed now more than ever. I invite you to open your minds to Steve's personal insights and contemplate what I learned from this most extraordinary man. Come, let us worship together. We join Unitarian Universalists across the country in lighting a chalice. As I light our shared chalice, I invite you to light your home chalice. The lighting of chalices is an invitation to continue our ongoing search for the light of truth and a reminder that we are all interconnected in the great web of existence of which we are each a beloved part. In declaring our commitment to connection, I invite you to join me now in the words of the covenant of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Each week, we take time to embrace our church family and bring to mind the others in our lives for whom we care. Let us join together now in celebration of our joys and in solemn recognition of our sorrows and losses. I invite you to use the chat box to share your joys and concerns. I will read them out loud as best I can for people who are participating by audio only. We are happy to have Claudia returning and hope that you are in good health, Claudia. Marilee's wishing happy 50th anniversary, of Stonewall. And Randy Bish says that his brother Brian is going through a difficult family issue, and we hold Brian in our hearts. Katie Grigg is missing her mother, who passed away 6 years ago today. Our thoughts are with you, Katie. Pete has concern for friends struggling with addiction and depression. Lori Kaner celebrates that they have chicks. How exciting. Anne Veribi is grateful for the privilege of having technology to connect with family and friends. Marianne Casper says that SRS has a new home. That's wonderful news. Kat Holtz is joyful that Hogwarts is taking place, even though it's virtual. And we thank all who are involved with Hogwarts. Marianne Casper continues that SRS will be in Franklin Elementary School. From Marilee's computer is Kevin saying that she is experiencing sorrow for the loss of Jane Craker yesterday. We hold you in our hearts, Kevin. Colleen Taylor is grateful for the leaders and volunteers of Kent Hogwarts for creating a safe and loving, magical place for children. Susanna and David are giving thanks for being with everyone today. And the Rome families went to see their uncle yesterday. It's good to get out. Jennifer May is giving thanks to the church family for words of kindness and cards as they grieve the loss of Lois's father, John. And we hold Lois, Jennifer, and their family in our hearts. Lori Kaner says Roscoe says Ada got her cast off Monday. That must be a relief. Elaine Bowen has concern for her niece Megan, pregnant with her first child, as she lives in Florida where COVID rages. John extends to all people who are participated in the wood firing experience over the weekend. Kara Kramer is so thankful for the experience of Charlie's first Hogwarts. Lois Ware asks that we please send healing thoughts to Evelyn Sperry and her dear friend Sandy Fischel, who is gravely ill in the Cleveland Clinic. We hold Evelyn in our hearts. She has suffered many losses. Kara Kramer is struggling with family conflict, and we hold you in our heart, Kara. For those names that were shared and for the names of others we hold silently in our hearts, we pray that they be blessed by the all-powerful presence of love. We awake to the complexities of living every day. Let us pray to the Spirit of life and love. We experience ongoing journey of contradictions, loss and discovery, confusion and understanding, pain and healing. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and tempting to escape. Let us gather right here, right now, to fortify our strength. May we find strength in knowing that we are not alone. We travel as companions in a mutual bond of giving and receiving. May we find strength in gratitude for our many blessings, frequently gifts bestowed by grace. May we find strength in the goodness in the world, human acts, small and large, of kindness, forgiveness, rescue, reconciliation. And may we find strength remembering that we are part of a larger web of sentient creations of earthly beauty, the embodiment of the miracle of existence itself. With renewed strength, may we lift up those who are oppressed, bring love to the lonely, and nurture the earth, recognizing that our hands alone cannot plow under all of the barren soil, but that together we can indeed plant and nourish seeds for future generations. Amen.
May our living be the light of justice. May our hearts be the burning within this life, as bright as love in the distance. Only the work of justice is this light at the end of the tunnel. The road is long, traveling slow. We don't have to walk this road all alone. Oh Lord, I pray that every woman and man could be walking with a sibling, holding hand in hand, or maybe walking with a cousin, holding hand in hand. May our living be the light of justice. May our hearts be the burning within this life, as bright as love in the distance. Only the work of justice is this light at the end of the tunnel. We are one in the working of love, and we walk on till the work's done, and we may change as the road moves on, and the people on their way sing a joyful song. Everybody on your way, sing a joyful song. May our living be the light of justice. May our hearts be the burning within this life, as bright as love in the distance. Only the work of justice is this light at the end of the tunnel.
Good morning. In 2004, I was on the way to a recording session south of Chardon. I saw a man pulling a heavy cart. He and the cart looked like they'd been on the road a long time. He had a sign over his head. It read, "Love Life," in bold red letters. Now, I stop and talk to every wanderer I come across, but he was the most interesting one I had ever seen. 10 years later, I contacted him as he was walking across Ohio. He stayed with us for 2 very cold November nights. Like many wanderers, he was a bit odd and a real character, but he was very friendly, talked of his history and mission, and was well prepared for his walk. Also, like many wanderers, he was very opinionated. But what surprised me was that he was staunchly inclusive of everyone, and he favored no religion or dogma of any kind other than to love life. He was his own person, dependent on no one, and yet he depended on everyone for food and occasional money. Although he never asked for handouts, he graciously accepted charity. However, he could turn on the charm when he needed something from a business. I took him to Kent Optometric to get his glasses repaired, and when it came time to pay, he lowered his head, raised his eyebrows, looked in the employee's eyes, and softly mentioned that he was a simple man with no money, spreading the message to love life, and any donation would be appreciated. It was the perfect imitation of begging puppy eyes. His mission was simple: spread the message that all life is beautiful and worthwhile to people on the road and to any group that would hear him out. His trip had a basic itinerary. When he stayed with us, his goal was to walk in every continental state, which was tough to do in the winter of 2014. He left our house in November on his way to all the northeastern states through that bitterly cold winter. Tired of 20 below zero nights, he took one step into Maine, then promptly headed south back home to Florida. Other than stepping in every state, there were no guidelines, no timetable. Walk when the weather was good, hunker down when it was not. His route would change from advice he would get along the way. Steve had a harder time procuring necessities in his early trips, since no one knew who he was. Some areas were downright dangerous, like the sparsely populated southwestern deserts. But when Facebook arrived, he became a celebrity. People recognized his love life sign from Facebook posts and ran out of their homes with food or cash for him. During the half mile I walked with him, 2 people came out in 15-degree cold to give him food. Unlike many wanderers, Steve was devoutly non-religious. He said, "I don't do church. Years in business taught me to eliminate the middleman whenever possible." I tried to get him to come to our retirees' lunch, and even after I said, "We don't talk religion," he still refused. In Utah, a man asked him if he had any religious affiliations. Steve said, "I believe in an infinite spirit of love, life, and wisdom, not man-made religions." And one last quote, "Tell me nothing of your religion. Show me only the love you claim your religion has taught you. I'll choose my own teachers, as did you." Truly remarkable character, Steve Fugate.
Steve Fugate's story is amazing for multiple reasons. Obviously, it's a story of endurance as he undertook a grueling, physically demanding endeavor, wearing out over 50 pairs of shoes by walking up to 20 miles a day, pulling a 110-pound cart. It's also a story of someone living a minimalist lifestyle in terms of material possessions. It's a story of mindfulness and being open to opportunity in its many different manifestations. People who approached Steve were frequently working class and often very eccentric people. Now, Steve himself is a colorful character, but based on the anecdotes in his book of recollections, he truly encountered very unusual people. And Steve found humanity and a generous spirit behind the unusual personas. He learned to refrain from judging or stereotyping anyone. He approached every human interaction as an opportunity for growth. But what I find most incredible is Steve's level of trust. Trust that the world will provide whatever he needs. Trust in the generous spirit of fellow humans. His journeys are a testament of his faith in the goodwill of humanity. Steve had little money. He depended significantly upon the generous gifts of strangers, which he usually received without even asking. Consider this for a moment. What if Steve had been a Black man? Could a Black man travel freely and sleep safely in fields and parks? Would people have offered a Black man meals and a bed in their homes? Steve was greeted with suspicion occasionally, but as soon as he shared his story, hearts melted. Would the same thing have happened to a Black man carrying a love life sign and sharing a similar story of loss of his children? Or would people have wondered if his story was true and instead thought that he was lazy and looking for a handout? Would they have wondered how he really planned to use the donated money? Those of us with less melatonin in our skin are privileged by relatively free movement in America. I recall sharing summer vacation plans with a Black friend and expressed my fondness for staying at bed and breakfast homes as a way to meet new people. She explained to me how she feels compelled to stay in corporate chain hotels and eat at chain restaurants because she knows what to expect. This warm, friendly woman shared that she would never stop to eat at a mom and pop local restaurant for fear of being unwelcomed or mistreated. Staying in a bed and breakfast was an unthinkable risk for her. For evidence of her concern, recall the verbal threats hurled upon the Black man in New York City's Central Park, who was watching birds with nothing more threatening in his hands than binoculars. For a moment, through our readings, let us step into the shoes of African Americans who venture outside.
Our first reading is from an interview that Sarah Laskow did with Rahawa Haley, a Black female hiker making her first trip across the entire length of the Appalachian Trail. Here is what Rahawa Haley had to say about that experience. I should be clear that the trail itself was the kindest and most generous white space imaginable in America. I have nothing but good things to say about the through hiking community. It's incredibly warm. I don't know if I'll ever experience something like that again. There are two sides to the trail. There's hiking the trail, but there's also having to go into trail towns. You need food, you need to do that laundry. It's not the trail that's the problem. It's being bothered in places that don't expect to see you. As an example, Ms. Hale talked about a photo she took that appears in the article. Note that photo I took. There's a Confederate flag at that hostel. We had just finished talking about how we were spending our money at a hostel that flew a Confederate flag. The men I was talking to, they tried to get hitches into town. You hitch into town to resupply or take a night off, and they'd be hanging out with their friends, 3 white guys and a Black guy. And people would stop and say, "We'll take those 3, but we won't let you in our car." He further mentions, most statistics report the trail is about 75% men. I didn't feel the weight of walking as a woman to the same degree as walking as a Black person, though both were there. In the day-to-day, it was fine. Let's say I've left the town, I'm on the trail. You hike, it's nice, you have nice chats. It's fine. The day-to-day wasn't the wait. The wait was, will I get a hitch into town? Will the hotel charge me more? Will I be followed in the Dollar General? If I stop at the crossing to have a snack, will someone throw trash at me? That happened once. A reason I documented this hike is because there are so few resources for Black hikers. If you search on Google, the first result for Black hiker is a pair of Timberland boots. I've gotten emails from people saying how inspired they are. I hear from people of color who say, I want to hike, but I don't know where to go. I don't know where it's safe. And our second reading today is more local. And it's a reminder that the sense of fear experienced by Blacks hiring in nature isn't limited to Blacks living in places like New York City or small southern towns near the Appalachian Trail. Being on guard is a necessity for Blacks venturing out into parks in their own backyard. This letter that I'm going to read you appeared in a recent edition of the Cuyahoga Valley National Park Conservancy newsletter. It's titled Important Message from Dion Alexander, Chair of the Conservancy Board of Directors, June 3rd, 2020. Normally, when I look at my hiking boots, I get a warm nostalgia feeling. Those clunky boots are heavy with the memory of energetic hikes, lazy walks to nowhere, and the discovery of some plant, bird, or bug that I hadn't seen before. But occasionally those boots remind me of the puzzled, nervous, and sometimes angry stares that I receive as a Black woman enjoying nature. Behind those stares are the loud, unspoken questions. Do you belong here? Are you a threat? The question of belonging and being Black or brown in a green space was answered with hostile aggression last week in New York's Central Park when a white woman made a false accusation of threatening behavior against a Black man, an avid birder, just because he asked her to leash her dog. Weeks prior, a young Black man jogging in his Georgia neighborhood was assumed to be a safety threat and shot to death. Still stinging from these events, our country is mired in a case of lethal police brutality against a Black man in Minnesota. I am admittedly emotionally exhausted. The boots that cradled me and connected me to the good earth just days ago now seem to grip me in paralyzing fear. Fear of the trauma of racism, the needless loss of life, and just being Black outdoors.
As white people in a white-dominated culture, we leave our homes and unconsciously trust that we'll be treated with decency. We probably take this for granted and assumed that this perception of reality is shared by everyone. Tragically, many Blacks can't trust that life will be fair or relatively safe. To the contrary, Black children at a young age are taught not to trust, to always be watching their backs, to be on the defensive. As a parent and grandparent, it breaks my heart that Black children's innocence must be crushed at an early age to help them build resilience and to ensure their safety. I want my children, grandchildren, and my Black and brown brothers and sisters to be able to say with enthusiasm, I love life, all of it, without conditions. Steve relates in his book touching encounters with hundreds of people, from police officers to motorcycle gang members, reminding us that everyone has the capacity for compassion. But as we know, this compassionate attitude is not extended to all groups of people. The past months of multiple horrific incidents of verbal and physical violence by white racists against unarmed Black men and women have been heart-wrenching. Yet there have been some positive outcomes that have quickly arisen from the tragedies. For example, protests are taking place in small, predominantly white communities. Governments have declared racism to be a public health crisis, and the military is discussing removing the names of Confederate leaders from military bases. Even Aunt Jemima pancake syrup will be rebranded. We have reason for hope, but the momentum must be sustained. In my chosen faith, Unitarian Universalism helps me believe that goodness is alive in humanity and life. Unitarian Universalists are self-declared ambassadors of love. We wear t-shirts proudly proclaiming siding with love. Part of the very mission statement of this church is to inspire love, which we embody through our values and actions. We could be at a pivotal moment in American history where our hands could help to bend the arc of justice. There's much systemic racial justice work that needs to be accomplished, but I'm not going to address that here. Instead, I want to raise awareness about the steps that each of us can take to help create a more loving world for marginalized and oppressed people. Unitarian Universalism calls on us to be beacons of love and embodiments of the fact that Black lives matter. We can do this in our daily living, and indeed we are. I'm proud to be a member of this church. Our highly visible church sign proclaims Black Lives Matter. Many members of this congregation have stood in solidarity for racial justice at local protests. Of course, protesting is not something that everyone can undertake, and we mustn't chastise someone who doesn't attend protests. Love responds in many forms in the pursuit of justice. At its most fundamental level, love calls us to act lovingly towards others. We can make a concerted effort to be nice to strangers, especially people of color, while hiking or any other encounter during our daily routine. It's obviously harder to do this these days when we're wearing masks that obscure our smiles. So we need to be deliberate in our pleasantries and commit to speaking first, rather than waiting for a stranger to speak to us before we say anything. By acknowledging someone's humanity, we ignite connection. We can do this over and over every day. Love calls us to speak up to racist comments and behaviors exhibited by those around us. When we do so, we can offset the lasting sting of a verbal aggression suffered by a person of color. Our actions may even be a teachable lesson for the perpetrator who might just refrain from hurtful behavior in the future. Our personal efforts to reduce microaggressions will help relieve the daily stress of those living while Black. Finally, love calls us to educate ourselves and others. You can join UU Justice Ohio and learn about the Poor People's Campaign. You can sign up for the sessions to be offered shortly by Sonis Parsons, encouraging reflections on race. Or participate in the community dialogue on race that will be led by the Portage NAACP with the help of the Kent Interfaith Alliance. You could become a member of a new group of activists being formed with leadership under Reverend Renee Rahutsky. This group is called Allies for Racial Justice Portage and Summit. Love calls on you at this moment to choose the actions that stir your passion and also stretch your comfort zone. Steve Fugate proclaimed, "The single hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, other than bury my babies, was to convert my heart-wrenching pain into a positive energy directed at others and away from myself. The world has changed each time one of us gets our eyes off ourselves and allow our real purpose in life, love and concern for our fellow human being, to come forward. Please love life." I know that each one of us longs for all Americans to feel blessed by the abundance of life, no matter their race, religion, physical or mental ability, or sexual or gender orientation. We can and must be the crusaders fighting for this attainable goal. So let us go forth and through our actions be the living proof that Steve Fugate's trust in the goodwill of humanity is indeed valid. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you, Hal, for that spontaneous music filling in for us. Kristen Collins says, we give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music, love, beauty, and a sacred space where we can all belong. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Our congregations thrive because each of you believe in music, love, beauty, and sacred space. In spite of the need for physical distancing, we are strong as a community and able to be together virtually for worship, for community, and for shared ministry. This and all of our important work is supported by each of you through the gifts of your time, your talents, and your generous financial donations. Thank you. I want to remind everybody that we have a special collection that we're leaving open for the entire month, but that is getting ready to draw to a close. So if you would like to give to our special collection to Love Light, I encourage you to do that soon. Love Light is a local nonprofit that's dedicated to supporting children. You can designate your offering as a social justice special collection. The slide shows different ways to do that. You can go to the website, or an easy way is to text GIVE and then just follow the instructions to make and indicate that you want your donation to go to the special collection if you want to designate it for Love Light. Thank you. We now give and receive the offering as a sign of our shared commitment to the life and work of this congregation and beyond.
One more step. We will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step. One more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
As we come to the close of our time together, I invite you to remain online and join in our virtual coffee hour. I will now extinguish our shared chalice. Please join in saying aloud our closing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. May we carry these in our hearts and minds until we are together again. May you go with love in your heart, justice on your mind, and a sense of action stimulating your spirit.